Lisa's boss, Thomas, was one of those men who went around puffing up his chest, calling himself an alpha, like it was a title he'd earned. He seemed to thrive on control, flaunting his self-importance at every turn. The worst part? He actually made a move on her, my wife, as if our marriage didn't matter. The sheer nerve of it lit a fire in me that was hard to keep under wraps. I struggled to grasp how anyone could be that arrogant. That evening, I came home, expecting to find Lisa already there, just like every other night. Usually she'd be in the kitchen, and the smell of dinner would fill the house, comforting and familiar. But tonight felt different. She wasn't home, yet, and it was already getting late. A feeling of unease crept up on me. It was like my gut already sensed something was wrong. I picked up my phone, about to call her, when it buzzed in my hand. "Hey, still at the office?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the worry simmering beneath. "Yeah, but I'm on my way home now. I've got a surprise for you," she replied, her voice upbeat, but distant somehow. "Should I go ahead and start dinner or order something?" I asked. "No need. We won't have time for that tonight," she said, and hung up before I could press for details. I was left more puzzled than before. About 20 minutes later, she walked through the door, and one look at her made my heart sink. She looked out of sorts. Her clothes were wrinkled, stockings gone, makeup smudged, and her hair had come undone, like she'd been through a whirlwind. "Tough day?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though I was carefully noticing every little detail. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked up to me and wrapped me in a hug, holding on longer and tighter than usual. Then she leaned in close and whispered, "You know I love you more than anything, right? You'd do anything for me, wouldn't you?" I nodded automatically, thinking of all the ways I'd gone out of my way to make her happy over the years. But something about her tone made me feel uneasy, like there was something she wasn't telling me. Then she started talking about her boss, Thomas, and some of the deep conversations they'd been having at work. Apparently it wasn't just friendly chat. Thomas had been talking about relationships and roles, in a way that seemed to have gotten to her. He'd been sharing his philosophy about how relationships are supposedly stronger when the man takes a back seat, and it was clear she'd been thinking about it. "You know, you always let me make a lot of the little decisions, where we go on vacation, what we're eating for dinner." "I appreciate that so much," she started, looking at me intently. "But Thomas has been saying that some relationships work better when the man is, well, less in control. It sparked something in me, Kevin, something I didn't even know I was missing." "Lisa," I said slowly, trying to wrap my mind around what she was saying. "I'm fine with you taking charge of the small stuff, but for the big decisions like our home or finances, that's a joint decision. It's not about control, it's about being partners, equals. That's what I've always thought marriage was." "Maybe," she replied, her voice softer, almost wistful. "But Thomas sees things differently. He's confident, strong. He thinks men like you, kind, supportive, are naturally better suited to a more supportive role, and he's been sharing these ideas with me." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Somehow Thomas, with all his bluster and self-assuredness, had managed to get into her head, twist her perspective on our relationship. Is that what this is leading to? "Lisa, what exactly are you trying to say?" She hesitated, and my stomach dropped. "Thomas has been, well, he's been more direct with me lately. He's confident, sure of himself, and it's hard to ignore. I know it's wrong, but I got caught up in it. It's been exciting." Suddenly the room felt stifling. "Exciting?" I repeated, barely able to get the word out. She looked away, avoiding my eyes. "These past few weeks I've found myself thinking about him, Kevin, and he mentioned that maybe you'd be open to it." Maybe you'd even get something out of watching. If not, he's convinced it'll still make us feel more alive, more connected. When I come back to you, I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to say this was some weird joke. But she didn't. She was completely serious. Lisa, I finally managed, my voice shaking with disbelief. Are you actually suggesting this? Do you really believe I'd be okay with it? She looked at me, almost pleading. Kevin, I know you love me, and I know you want me to be happy. I honestly believe this could take us to a whole new level. Lisa, have you done anything with him? I asked. No, Kevin, I haven't slept with him, she replied, though there was a hesitation in her voice. But we've gotten close. I've touched him, talked with him in ways I know I shouldn't have. A sick feeling washed over me. Anne, he's here. Yes, she admitted, almost in a whisper. He's out in the driveway. We're going to talk, and then he's coming inside. You can watch if you want. Afterward, I'll come back to you, and you can have me however you want. A wave of disgust rose up in me. Are you out of your mind, Lisa? I nearly shouted. The thought of being with you after him makes me sick. Her eyes widened, but she didn't. Back down. I know it sounds crazy, Kevin, but I believe you'll end up loving it. Lisa looked at me with conviction, her eyes bright with a strange excitement. Once you see how this strengthens us, you'll understand, Kevin. This could be incredible for us. My pulse quickened, and a surge of anger rose up in me, barely contained. No, Lisa, absolutely not. You're crossing a line, and I'm telling you right now, send him away. Her face faltered, and for a moment, she seemed almost stunned, as if she hadn't expected me to push back. Her voice softened, almost pleading. Kevin, you always let me have my way. Why won't you this time? This is going to be good for us. I'm certain of it. Then, without another word, she spun on her heel and headed toward the stairs. Let him in when you're ready, she threw over her shoulder, as if she hadn't just shattered everything I thought I knew about us. I stood frozen, the weight of her words hitting me like a punch to the gut. Lisa. I called, my voice raw with emotion. I get it now. I see exactly what this means. She paused briefly on the stairs but didn't turn around, and I watched, seething, as she continued up, leaving me standing there, reeling. How could she be so blind to the destruction she was causing? How could she believe this twisted plan was somehow for us? Without another thought, I walked to her purse in the kitchen. Grabbing her keys, her phone, and our shared credit card, my eyes drifted to a dish towel, and an idea began forming. I pulled open a drawer, took out a couple of zip ties, and grabbed the large carving knife from the block. My heart was pounding as I stepped outside, ready to face the man who'd managed to drive a wedge into my life. Thomas was sitting in his car, scrolling on his phone, looking as if he didn't have a care in the world. He didn't even notice me approach at first. When he did, he shot me a smug grin, rolling down the window with a smirk. So, Lisa finally filled you in, huh? His voice dripped with condescension. Don't worry. You can have her for now, but soon enough, she'll be mine. Before he could finish, I swung my fist, landing a punch square on his nose. The crack echoed in the air, and for a split second, there was nothing but silence as he grabbed his face, dazed. I tossed him the dish towel and said, "You're going to need this." As he pressed it to his bleeding nose, I quickly looped a zip tie around his wrist and fastened it to the headrest of his seat. He tried to struggle, but before he could regain his composure, I wrenched open the door and delivered a second blow, this time to his gut, in that spot he loved to boast about in his fitness talks. He doubled over, gasping, his movements restricted by the tie on his wrist. I didn't waste any time, grabbing his free hand and securing it to the steering wheel. He was now trapped, tied to his own car, unable to move. I leaned in close, lowering my voice. So, this is what a real alpha looks like, huh? Pathetic. You picked the wrong guy to mess with. And believe me, you're going to regret it. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Ignoring him, I reached for a heavy garden hose nozzle nearby and swung it hard at the side window, sending shards of glass flying into the car. I didn't stop there. I smashed the windshield, watching as it cracked into a spider web of broken glass. Moving to the front of the car, I shattered the headlights one by one, each swing giving me a dark sense of satisfaction. When I finally stopped, I circled back to the driver's side, chuckling under my breath. Looks like your precious car is going to need some major repairs, Thomas. He stared up at me, his face a mix of terror and pain. I pulled out the carving knife, holding it up to his throat, pressing the blade just lightly against his skin near his jugular. His eyes went wide and he stammered, "Please, Kevin. I never meant for things to go this far. It was just a bit of fun. It didn't mean anything. I swear I'll leave and never come back." I glared at him, my voice low with disgust. "I'm not going to finish you. Not today. But listen closely. If I see a single word about this from the police or suffer any blowback because of it, I'll find you. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not for a year. But one day, when you're alone, I'll finish what I started here." I leaned in, my words cold and controlled. "This is your choice. You can decide if this is the last time we see each other, or if you'll spend every day looking over your shoulder." I stabbed the knife into the seat beside him, letting it sink deep into the fabric. "Lisa's going to need this to cut you loose. Drive her far away, go to the hospital. I don't care. But make sure I never see either of you again." Without waiting for his response, I turned and walked back toward the house, my heart still pounding with adrenaline. As I shut the door behind me, I heard Lisa calling from upstairs. "Thomas? Did you and Kevin talk things out?" The sheer ignorance in her voice was astounding. She had no idea of the chaos she'd just unleashed. "Lisa," I called up, forcing my voice to sound steady. "Thomas is still outside. He wants to have a word with you." Moments later, Lisa came down the stairs, draped in nothing but a silk robe that barely covered the lingerie I'd bought her long ago. She looked at me, confusion in her eyes. "What happened, Kevin? Did you tell him everything's fine? I made it perfectly clear what's at stake for him. You should go and meet him." Lisa's eyes narrowed slightly, as if sensing something off. But she didn't ask any more questions. She slipped out the door, heading toward Thomas's car. The second it shut behind her, I moved. I headed straight upstairs, grabbed a suitcase, and without a second thought, began filling it with her things. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, everything. My movements were fast, deliberate, powered by the adrenaline still rushing through me. I emptied her drawers and cleared her things from the bathroom, even tossing in her tennis shoes and makeup bag. Once everything was packed, I opened the guest room window and called down to her. "Lisa, you're going to need this," I shouted as I shoved the suitcase through the window. It hit the driveway with a heavy thud, and the sound of breaking glass from her perfume bottles filled the air. Her shoes followed, one of them narrowly missing her. She looked up at me, her expression shifting from shock to raw hurt as tears began to fall. "Kevin, what are you doing?" Her voice wavered, barely holding it together. I leaned out the window, my tone cold. "Isn't this what you wanted, Lisa? You made it clear. You'd rather be with him." Her tears fell faster. "And her," voice broke as she tried to respond. "I never meant to hurt you, Kevin. I thought this was something we could explore together, something that would bring us closer. Please, let's talk. We can work this out." I shook my head, my voice flat and steady. "Lisa, you've been lost in some kind of delusion from the moment you walked through that door tonight, expecting me to go along with this fantasy. I don't know if I ever really knew you. Either way, I'm done. Take your alpha to the hospital, or wherever you want. But understand this. If I hear even a whisper to anyone about tonight, there will be consequences. Her face crumpled as she clutched the suitcase, shame and guilt pouring over her. Please, Kevin, she whispered. I'll do anything to fix this. Let me in, and we can talk. I won't speak to Thomas again. I love you. I stared down at her, unmoved. I'll pack the rest of your things. You can pick them up later. Don't come back here. With that, I slammed the window shut, the finality echoing through the empty room. I headed downstairs, hearing her sobbing outside, calling my name, pleading. I ignored it, walking to the front door. I grabbed her purse from the counter, opened the door, and tossed it at her. It struck her square in the chest, falling to the ground as she looked up at me, stricken. I shut the door again, locking it behind me. Leaning back against the door, I could still hear her muffled cries, her voice desperate. Kevin, please. What did you do to Thomas? Just come out here and talk. But I was done talking. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a cold beer from the fridge, and cracked it open, settling into a chair at the table. As the adrenaline began to wear off, a hollow ache took its place. I stared out the window, watching the driveway, where Thomas, bruised and bloodied, was still bound in his car. Lisa was frantically trying to cut him free with the knife I'd left her hands shaking in her panic. After a few clumsy tries, she finally freed him, helping him into the back seat. She slid into the driver's seat, looked back at the house, one last time, eyes red and full of regret, and slowly backed out of the driveway. I took a long sip, the taste sharp and grounding, and watched her drive away with him. I could hardly process how everything had escalated so quickly, how my life had flipped upside down in just one night. Never had I thought Lisa would betray me like this. Never had I imagined standing there, watching her drive away with a man she'd chosen over me. In the days that followed, I ignored every attempt she made to reach me. I knew she was trying to contact me, likely calling from new numbers, leaving messages that I didn't bother to check. I didn't care what she had to say anymore. Part of me wondered if Thomas might press charges after what I did, and I half expected the police to show up at my door. But nothing happened. No knock, no questions, no consequences. I suppose Thomas knew better than to involve the authorities, realizing it wouldn't end well for him. Still, I knew I'd eventually have to face Lisa again. There were things to sort out, and ignoring her forever wasn't an option. So, after several days of silence, I finally decided to call her back. Come by in an hour, I told her, my voice flat, no trace of warmth left. We need to talk. She showed up precisely on time, looking worn out and defeated. Her face was a mess of tear stains, eyes swollen and red. She stood at the porch for a moment, as if trying to gather herself, then slowly sat down next to me on the steps. We sat in silence, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on us, neither of us knowing how to start. Finally, she broke the silence, her voice shaking. Kevin, I'm sorry. I don't know how I could have believed Thomas when he told me you'd be open to this, that it would somehow be good for us. I thought maybe it was his confidence or his conviction that made me believe him. I see it now. It was all insane. I love you, Kevin. You're the only one I want. Please let me come home. I'll do anything to fix this. I looked at her, feeling the anger simmering beneath my skin, but I forced myself to stay calm. Tell me, Lisa, I said coldly. How was he in bed? Her face went pale as she quickly shook her head. Kevin, stop. Please. It never went that far. I didn't reply, just stared at her, waiting for her to continue. She swallowed hard and took a breath. After you and I talked that night, I realized How wrong this all was. I never slept with him. He's terrified of you, Kevin. The next day he fired me, said he didn't want anything more to do with me. And after what you did, he spent 2 nights in the hospital. He told them it was a robbery, and I went along with it. I didn't want you to get into trouble. I nodded slowly, letting the sarcasm drip from my words. Well, at least he did one thing, right? She looked at me, her eyes pleading. Kevin, I know I messed up, but I'm here now. I want to come back. I want to be your wife again. I see now that you're the only one I want, the only one I need. Please forgive me. I took a deep breath, the words coming out slowly. Lisa, I said, voice steady. We've spent 5 years together. For the first 2, we were madly in love. The last 3, we've been building a life. And yet, here we are with you already looking for something else. Maybe you think you love me. Maybe you even do, in some way. But one thing is clear. You don't respect me. If you did, you wouldn't have even entertained the idea of bringing your boss into our marriage. She tried to hold back tears, but I wasn't finished. If you respected me, Lisa, you wouldn't have imagined me as some kind of doormat who'd just stand by while you brought another man into our bed. If you truly loved me, none of this would have crossed your mind in the first place. She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, stopping her. The truth is, Lisa, you've already crossed a line. Maybe you didn't sleep with him, but you allowed him into our relationship in ways that destroyed the foundation we built together. While he was feeding you his alpha male fantasy, you let yourself drift from the promises we made. Kevin, she whispered, her voice barely audible, I swear I'll never do anything like this again. I shook my head, feeling the finality of my decision settle in. It's already done, Lisa, and we both know this wouldn't be the last time. Maybe not next year, or even in 5 years, but eventually, you'll get bored, or think you're missing out, and you'll find another excuse. Trust, once broken, can't just be rebuilt, and without trust, there's nothing left holding us together. Lisa's sobs grew louder, her shoulders shaking, but I didn't let myself waver. I'd thought long and hard about this, and there was no going back now. We don't have kids, our savings are modest, and the house isn't even close to being paid off. Staying with you now is a risk I'm not willing to take. I don't trust you anymore, and even worse, I've lost respect for you. She buried her face in her hands, but I pressed on, my voice calm and steady. We're getting a divorce, Lisa. You can keep your car, I'll keep mine. We'll split the savings and sell the house. You can go and find someone who suits the life you're looking for, someone who'll love you the way you want to be loved. I stood, my decision set. I've already hired a divorce lawyer. We can do this civilly, or you can get your own lawyer. But either way, we're done. I'll start moving out next week so we can list the house. Lisa shook her head, her face twisted, with anguish. Kevin, please. I made a mistake, a huge one, but you have to forgive me. I love you. I was pulled into this. I didn't mean for it to go so far. Don't throw us away, please. I looked at her one last time, my voice cold and final. Lisa, I've said everything there is to say. It's time for both of us to move on. Without another word, I got up and began packing her things into her car. She looked at me the whole time, eyes swollen and full of desperation, but I felt nothing anymore. Goodbye, Lisa, I said, closing the door on our marriage as I walked back into the house, locking the door behind me. The days that followed felt strange. After years of putting Lisa first, I found myself alone in an empty house, but to my surprise, I felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted. It wasn't the future I'd planned, but it was one I could face, subscribe, and stay one step ahead of cheaters, and trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.